spoken here. And what we have is a gentleman who investigates the crop circles from a slightly different angle to some of the areas that we've had, of course, in years past. And that is through his work with all sorts of things, gematria, Kabbalah, astrology. Joseph Mark Cohen, who I'm about to introduce to you, he tries to see what is encoded in these shapes. Because as we all know, just with geometry alone and the different symbolism, you can look at a crop circle and you're just seeing one element of something that has many, many layers to it. So what Joseph Mark tries to do is to bring these out to see what else is nested inside these shapes, to try to see them more three-dimensional or even four-dimensionally maybe. So it's a great pleasure to welcome Joseph Mark here. He's the founder of the Tree of Life Mystery School, by the way. And Joseph goes around taking people to sacred sites and leading tours to these places that, of course, are so revitalizing for so many people. So it's a pleasure to have him with us today. So please give a big hand for Joseph Mark Cohen. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And before we take our little crop circle journey, I knew I was under a kind of a time bind here to do what I would like to do in an hour with you. This is usually a 2-day seminar going through 86 different cards, some of which are doubled up. And I think I should begin, because you've worked. You had an introduction this morning through Jason with the Mayan calendar. You know, there's one way of looking at crop circles to feel that the circles are actually a form of interdimensional or cosmic acupuncture for the Earth grid. And if we take that notion, then there are frequencies that are being sent through our geometric star Earth, and there are new Earth frequencies coming in now very, very quickly because of the solar flares. And if you work with indigenous shamans and storytellers in Native America, which I've done a bit, then you understand that there's a music being broadcast. And in a certain sense, what I'm doing is I'm working and showing you a little bit of the Pythagorean and Kabbalistic way of seeing the designs as dimensional frequency holders. And if it feels appropriate, perhaps towards the end, I'll do a few overtone harmonics. The notion for those of us who have been working with the circles for a long time, Jay, Paulden, myself, is that there's something that's happening here that's creating the kind of link and bridge that we need between the left and right hemispheres of the brain. And some of the shamanic teachings are saying that we're in a hemispheric shift from about 5,125 years of using an aspect of the brain, which you might call male if you want, to opening up to not just flipping back to the female, but heading towards a level of androgyny in the human species. So there's some big philosophical and psychological implications of the crop circles. And I'm sure everybody in this room now has been out to them, yeah? No, okay, good to know. Because I went on the bus yesterday with, I guess, just a small group. And then this is a good intro for you if you've not been out, too, because, I'd love to take you through the whole of, the crop circle oracle card deck, but I had to pick and choose a few that I thought were significant. And even before I do this, I'd like you to close your eyes for a second, and I'm going to do one little overtone chant to bring an energy into the room, and it might be as important as the slideshow. I don't know. Then I'll tell you what it is, too. Take 3 deep breaths and blow the breath out. That was a little Kabbalistic chant to call in what are called the spirit or the divine breath, the Ruach Elohim. Okay, I guess we can begin. I thought what it would be fun to do, many people are fascinated with double numbers. How many people in this room watch when 111, 222, 333, that sort of thing come up on a clock? I'd say over 50%. So we are getting a form of digital divination through the digital clock. And Drunvalo put out one notion in some of the Flower of Life teachings as to what those meant. The Kabbalah's teachings are slightly different, so I thought, well, it'd be kind of fun to do the 11th card, the 22nd card, the 33rd card, the 44th card, so I can do a little bit of, Pythagorean teaching about number mysticism. So I started with the 11th card. I hope I counted correctly. Sometimes I have to count the field as one. But what we know about the number 11 from various traditions is it's the number of the Tao in China, and it's also connected to Ma'at, cosmic harmony in Egypt. Now, how many people here have worked with the old-fashioned tarot cards? Some, many. So then you know that you see the number 11 with justice written on it, yeah? It's not justice. It has nothing to do with our notion of legalism and justice. It's really cosmic harmony and balance. In fact, in Egypt, Ma'at was once a pole star. The pole star in Capricorn, but we'll see that a little bit later. And Ma'at will be a pole star again too. And in a certain sense, we want to have that cosmic harmony back on our planet. So this particular crop circle, which brought in the parabolic and gives you kind of like the eye that can adjust and move, there's a saying of William Blake, and I think it comes up on one of the oracles, which is, the eye sees more than the heart knows. I sense that when Blake was saying that, he was talking about what you could call the visionary eye, or the eye of fourfold perception of our energy bodies, and being able to see the dimensional essence. This does not run counter to the present teaching of the opening up of the high heart, but it's a way of understanding that we want to be able to use the eye as a lens and not be trapped by 3D perception. And that's part, and a big part, of the initiation that we're going through now. It's the opening up of the dimensional awareness of the human being. Okay? So this particular one, also from the standpoint of the Kabbalah, you have an energy in your heart. You have an energy that's coming from the heart to the pericardium point, actually, in Chinese medicine, through the hands. So the beginning of healing is basically tuning in to the soul star, the energy field, as it comes, the light comes directly down to the heart and bifurcates into the anabolic, catabolic, or left and right, or masculine, feminine hands, and then we want to put duality that's in the energy field back into a unity consciousness field, which is also part of what's happening for the whole planet. And James Joyce, when I was studying with McLuhan, said something like, the East will shake the West awake. It's happened, meaning that we have a hemispheric split on our planet, and now the teachings, it happened for many years, and there's a bridging now between East and Western hemispheres, if you want, of the planet. So this particular one is very, very beautiful, and why don't you just try the oracle, which is really a meditation, and hold the Tao between the palms of your hands. Come on. Got to be experiential here in Britain. And realize that when you do that, you're also connecting heaven and earth, which in your body would be above your crown chakra, above that, and root chakra, and by being in the right balance, and if you were doing qigong or any kind of energy work, you'd be very sensitive to that energy. And of course, in Egypt, there was what was called the cubit wand. Patrick Flanagan was working with that a long time ago. And how many people did the Tibetan rites? Ooh, not too many. Okay, few. So Patrick Flanagan created a cubit wand that you would hold, and it's a very important measure. It's a human measure, the cubit, the measure from about the shoulder right down to the tip. So try holding your palms in that way. And in a certain sense, there was a crop circle. If you remember, I didn't put it in the slideshow, but it was the goddess one, yeah? So if you're doing the sacred geometry of the goddess pose, you're holding that cubit wand around your soul star and feeling the energy going in through the palms of the hands and directly into the heart. That is the feminine, and you can put your hands down now, okay? So it's taking how we've been put into a duality universe and bringing us back into our unified field consciousness. That's a core lesson of many of the crop circles. And if there's any questions during this, I've noticed people have been doing a full hour. I'm quite fine taking a question or two. We'll fit it in an hour, okay? So, next. Electromagnetic energy is the number 11. In Kabbalah, it's the connection between our pure being and our becoming, the 1 and the 10. So that's the Pythagorean understanding of 11. 11 is, of course, the 11th sign of the zodiac, Aquarius. And it's, again, androgyny. If you're a New Testament person, you'd be looking at the woman with the water pitcher on top of her head, who is pouring out the Shekhinah, or the feminine divine presence, on the earth. So we're all taking in that Shekhinah, feminine divine presence, and one of the places it comes from is from the earth grid now. Okay, so meditating at sacred sites is an important spiritual activity. Okay, we just flipped to 22. I've put a little logo, which probably came from Andreas Mueller, of the crop circle, but then I found a dimensional one that's in sacred geometry that's a little different with the triangles. Now, in terms of Pythagorean, triangles always create harmony. I'm fortunate. I live in a geodesic dome, and a beautiful one out of pine, which is a musical chamber. I live in rural British Columbia on the edge of a glacial creek. So when I'm at home, every time I go to bed, I'm gazing up at pentagons, hexagons. Little kids come to visit my home. I give them the Count the Triangles contest until they're almost in tears and saying, it's impossible. You can't count the number of triangles in my home. Well, then channel it. But it's a totally different vibrational space than living in, a cubic structure or whatever. And Pythagorean, I probably will have a hexagonal bathhouse, a pentagonal structure, because the space, and you're going to hear about that tomorrow, I think, from our friend the House Whisperer back there, every space holds an energy. So in this particular one, the photograph was a little bit late, but what you've got is a Pythagorean tetractys, and what people don't really know about Pythagoras is that he was a student of Kabbalah for probably about 10 years in Egypt, near Alexandria, because he went there to learn what he learned from Egyptian priests, but there was a Merkava school of Kabbalah extant at that time, which is about soul travel. So this is his version, and what he used with his students. It's the emblem, actually, of the Pythagorean order. So I must have got to go back. Not that far. Okay. So basically, this is just the number 10. 1 dot, 2 dots, 3 dots, 4 dots. What you have is 9 triangles held by another one, and that's the 10th. So that's Pythagoras' version of the tree of life, is what it is. And if you look through the fields, there's many times where this is underneath as a grid when the geometry of sacred circles is created. I've seen it in about a dozen anyways. And if you look at the card deck later, and there's going to be one out at the display area, you would find it there, okay? So it may be that Pythagoras, as an ascended master, has something to do with the creation of crop circles. I put that out to you. We'll talk about that later when we get to a later circle. And in this one, it's interesting. It's surrounded by the zodiac. So there you have the 10 plus the 12, making 22, which is the master number, 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet. What people don't understand about Hebrew is that the whole of the Hebrew text is a coded text built on number mysticism. And each of those 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet is in fact a pictogram, a sonogram, meaning it can be used for sonic healing, and a gematria, a number mysticism. So you're reading like a coded text, which was badly, badly translated and quite maligned. So I used to have wonderful conversations with John Michel over a beer for a few hours, and he'd be looking at something, talking about sharing the Greek gematria, and I would say, well, that's true, John, but then in Hebrew it means this, and we had a tremendous, fun gematria conversation going on. I miss John. Here's the third one, 33, and unfortunately in Western culture, people think of 33 as crucifixion, right? It's not. It's not at all. 33 speaks of the masters of the heart, the embodiment of body, mind, spirit energies, cosmic waveforms, and I call it spiritual friends or the beloved, because it's Uranian electromagnetic mastery at the three major centers in the body, the hara, the heart, and the pineal gland. Okay? And in the Tree of Life, and I'm not going to show that photo, you actually have 10 spheres and 22 pathways. And 33 is the mastery of the Tree of Life. So, Janet, I don't know if Bert was in this one. I'm sorry that I had to put it sideways for the slideshow, but there are actually 33 circles in that one. Hands were apparently glowing upon entrance, according to Janet. And you can see it's like a flock of swallows. So this is about slipstreaming swallows, and there's a hidden geometric code based on hexagonal and multiple stars of David under that. I didn't put that on a graphic. And maybe the sweetest of all the crop circles, the slipstreaming swallows. So the oracle goes, trust in the great mystery, but keep an eye on your camels. That's a slight twist on a Sufi way of saying it, but I needed to make it a little bit more universal. And then the caravan route that you follow right to the oasis is Rumi's suggestion that when one is in a caravan, a flock of spiritual initiates, seekers, it allows you to slipstream. And slipstreaming is what Nassim Haramein's talking about when he's saying that there's an infinite source of energy at the core of every atom. But we have to clear the clutter. There's a few feng shui practitioners in this room that work with clearing the clutter, which is the interference patterns that keep you from slipstreaming and having really clear connection. 44. Again, the circle's a little bit sideways. It's based on 22. The fraction 44 over 14 gives you the 22/7, which is the simple way of getting to pi. But what people have never understood about 314 is actually the gematria of the being they call Metatron an archangel. It's not really an archangel. Metatron is, Drunvalo had an interesting idea as the energy that sends out all of the waveforms in the universe in the Akashic, so that everything that ever materializes, the Metatronic energy is behind that. And I think there was a Buddhist group making gold-covered designs that were called Metatronics. So this one is a natural sanctuary and used as a mandala or a card. You could be charging water. You could be creating radionic remedies. You could be potentizing with this simple crop circle design alone. So there's a whole element of healing that's coming in with the crop circles, and we haven't quite attuned to it yet, but I would say this one would be a good key to it. So the oracle goes, discover the sanctuary within your heart from where all spirals of light and geometric energy fields are emanated. And this is something that Drinvalo is teaching in his higher heart work, is that actually our physical heart is like a wormhole, and all of the electromagnetic fields of our Merkava, and it's more than, there are a lot of fields, emanate out of the heart. Both Drinvalo and Greg Braden are very keen on what is called heart math. So if you tune into the Institute of Heart Math, there's a whole science now budding of the electromagnetic fields emanating out of the heart's core. And this is find the plenum at the core of the void. For the longest time, physicists felt that we were in a universe that was running down, that there was a big burst, and now we're in an entropic universe. We are now understanding, and Nassim's work is validating this, that we are actually in a universe that has ongoing creation. And this is the teachings of the Kabbalah. There was no Big Bang at all. We are in an ongoing creation, and it's up to us to become co-creators. And I'm trying to define some of the teachings of the crop circles, and one of them is become a co-creator. So if you were in a circle of, say, crack sacred geometry explorers, and you got all excited and you wanted to create a crop circle, I've heard of one where a few people went out, to create a crop circle with a meditating geometric form, this and that. A couple of them slept in. One of them missed the highway. I don't know if anybody showed up, but the circle appeared. What does that mean? That means that there's a level of attunement, alignment with beings in other dimensions, and they sent the circle down. Thank you for your intent. You guys are kind of young. You haven't figured it out yet. Like that. I'm not kidding. I mean, I've been coming a long time. I hear some interesting stories. So finding the plenum at the core of the void, think of that psychologically. Every time you hit a psychological wall where you feel that you've got closure on a relationship, or your bank account just went into the overdraft, or whatever, remember that little card, tune in, and realize that it could be a gateway through a psychological void that allows you to tune into the infinite plenum abundance of the universe. So you just have to recalibrate your perception. Okay? There's a little bridge to 55. I couldn't not put this one in. It's my favorite. I had this over my bed for a while, the Windmill Hill Time Tunnel. Just an unbelievable formation. So I called it the mark of majesty, potency, vibrational uniqueness. I played it up a little bit. Dimensional wormhole, like in Star Trek. What I would like you to consider is if you were there and had the opportunity to do ceremony, and I've only done it like maybe 3 times, had a group of people. Once at Stephen Caron's group, I had something like 60 people, and I managed to get a ceremony in a crop circle, 47 people, and it was powerful. They truly are temporary temples. And usually it's kind of loosey-goosey. We go, individuals are meditating in different places, tuning in, but it's really beautiful for a whole group to be in intent in a circle. So imagine you were in a circle, kind of like climbing up the Tor, and you went like here and then here, clockwise, counter, you kept doing it, you get here, and then all of a sudden you switch, and you go like this. It would take you a long time to walk this crop circle and do it. Maybe you'd be chanting along the way, but when you get here, that is what, for Trekkies, you'd call that your transporter room. Meaning that when you're here, you're simultaneously here. That's what a time tunnel or a portal is about. So this one, the number 52. Why did I put it at 52? Well, because I knew about the number 52 being the gematria of the one that most people call Thoth, but in Egyptian it would be Jehuti, the Atlantean master, the emerald tablet, all of that, okay? And then there's the Viracocha, or Quetzalcoatl, is also the number 52 in symbology, and the Hebrew character named Elijah. You must know the story of Elijah, yeah? Some yes, most. Elijah was the one that, in the story, like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, he got taken up by what is called a sa'ara, a whirlwind. And so he didn't die. There's only a few stories in the Hebrew world, people who didn't die, who just got taken off planet. So if you raise your frequencies to a level, at fifth dimension or above, then you are taken up. Doesn't mean that you die, or it means that you are up into a higher vibrational body. So meditation on that particular card is for a dimensional upgrade to tune in to a higher frequency zone. Okay? Close your eyes, I'll do the Eliyahu chant. Why not? It's simply, well, I'll explain it. It goes like this. Take a good deep breath. Take a deep breath, and I'm going to do it one more time the way a Native American would do it. Take one deep breath, blow it out, and I'll explain a little bit about the science of sound. Every vowel, when it's done in a harmonic way, will resonate your tree of life or your chakra grid, okay? So this is from the teachings of the Sufi master Hazrat Inayat Khan. A high A is opening up the soul star. E is working around the third eye. Ah, in a harmonic way, is opening up the heart. Hebrew word for love is ahava. Most of the Middle Eastern languages work strongly with the ah sound. And then the oo is working with the hara. So, if Elijah, what I just chanted, is to bring through what is called the etheric cloak of the prophet Elijah, because in the sequencing, it's going above the crown, soul star, third eye, heart, hara. So it's creating a cloak of light. And that was called the Aderet, and Yeshua, also known as Jesus, that's nested in the tradition. So this is the esotericism underneath sacred text, rooted in harmonics of sound and light and knowledge. And if you're meditating on a crop circle and you want to call in an ascended master, a being that was on the earth but is now returned to a home in a higher dimension, this would be a good card to use. Now, we're back to 55, the measure of the light body. In 1997, there were a lot of Kabbalistic symbols in the fields. This is actually 6 trees of life from a common Keter or a common Malchut, right? 6 times 9 is 54. 55 is the central one. So if you have a Keter and you send a snowflake of 6 trees of light, I did this once ceremonially. It was very beautiful, hard to organize, but so, and then there was little ones around it. 126 is Anav, humility, the eye of the heart, the nave of the wheel. So I felt that this one is very useful for alchemy to help find the homeopathic signature or the vibratory pattern, which is basically what homeopathy is about. It's about finding the vibratory signature that can help unravel samskaras, things that are impediments to you being at one with your source frequencies. Okay? And there were 72 smaller circles, 52 larger ones. 72 is the master number for crop circles. It means cosmic consciousness, Christ consciousness. It's the, how shall we say it? It connects you with source energy. It's a fifth of a circle. And many of the crop circles, including the one which I didn't throw up here, which was called the Great Shelford Angel, one of the most popular of all crop circles, is based on 72. So this is a card for alchemy. Here's 64, 8 times 8, and indeed there were 64 around. However, if you count the ones that weren't filled in, it hits 72. If you fly to Egypt with me sometimes, you might see that on the airplane, the wings of Horus. So this connects Chinese, Hebrew, Egyptian. It's one of the master ones. And when I mentioned earth acupuncture, there's a sense that there are some places around Silbury Hill that are actually portals or ley lines that go right to the Giza Pyramid and then get distributed around the whole Earth grid. And this was one of those master circles. I think this is Steve's photograph, and you get the sense of dimension here. You can see how energy is being gathered and then spiraled in and then probably relayed to here and then relayed out the grid. Beautiful, beautiful circle. Now, the oracle comes directly from the I Ching. It is the creative that begets things, but they are brought to birth. I'm sorry, that's the receptive there. And there's 8 receptives. A creative would be 8 strong lines. But what you see in this circle is 8 receptives in the I Ching. So this one, it's just hard not to love it. By the way, on the card deck, I've put a resource or a book that would help enhance the understanding of every circle, and I felt that the book that Maurice Cotterell and Adrian Gilbert, who will be speaking later this weekend, put together called The Mayan Prophecies would be very, very useful. So what I did with the Oracle card deck was create something that could be a year-long study program, if somebody has that long, that allows the crop circles to open up all sorts of understandings of the esoterics. This was a favorite of many, and most people felt this was 2 dolphins swimming. The number 66 in Hebrew is the word Gilgal. It means wheel. The wheel of incarnation, the wheel of your various incarnations. Fascinating circle. There is some who believe that there are masters from Atlantis that took embodiments as dolphins. How many people in this room have swum with dolphins? That's pretty good. I'd say about a third. Do you remember how you felt in the dream state the night after swimming with the dolphins? Quite a joyful experience. I've known of people who had major healings after swimming with dolphins. So, and Ms. Patricia Corey's, her core mission right now, and I think she's around in Glastonbury, is to keep people aware of the negative impact of some of the massacre of dolphins that has gone on, particularly outside of Japan. So, But as masters of a different kind of language than we as humans have, dolphins, and this is just my poetic supposition, but I believe, honestly, that dolphins and whales are listening to the star music. They're listening to the music of the spheres, and because they're in the medium of water, they can share that. And of course, if you go to the native understanding, they are the record keepers of a former cosmic day. We're living in the 6th cosmic day, but they hold the records from the 5th cosmic day of creation. So one of the ways to tune in to a much deeper timeline than our firefly human lifetime is to tune into a species that has a much deeper relationship to Earth history. Okay? So the oracle for this one is explore your universe with pure sound. Experiment with pitch, tone, resonance, rhythm, and vocal harmonics. Resonate and echolocate. So I guess it's time for me to ask you to chant with me, eh? Let's see what we're going to do. It tends to be that males, like myself, prefer lower vibrational pure tones, whereas females like to go up into the higher ranges and more into something like scat singing. But how about we'll do an experiment, see how it sounds. We'll take 3 or 4 tones. Dolphins. Well, let's just do 2. We'll do ooh and ah, okay? And I want you to explore sound with pitch, with tone, with rhythm with it. It might sound chaotic, but we're all going to try it together, okay? All begin, and you'll all join in. So try that little thing that I'm doing where I'm just opening and closing my mouth. Okay, that's just your first experiment. I expect that every time you're in the bathtub from now on, you're going to be making dolphin sounds. I've put tape recorders, MP3 files would be made. We're going to make money with this project, I know. Here's 77. I was not really able to... How are we doing time-wise, by the way? Still have like a half hour? What? 20 minutes. Okay, I'm going to have to speed this up a bit. This one, I didn't analyze this circle. A channel that I work with told me it was a 5th dimensional. It was very interesting. But the story is there's a 7-year-old girl, if anybody knows her, named Lyra, who has the same birthday I do. And I hung out with that girl for about an hour and a half. She owned the circle. It was her playground. She arrives with a stuffy that's a unicorn, which is a symbol from Capricorn, actually, and a dog named Sirius, and her mom told me that she was in the circles before she was born. So I thought, interesting, star kid. You know about star kids? She's a star kid. Really fun to be with. So if this one comes up in an oracle, 77 in Hebrew is mazal, constellations, okay? And the phrase mazel tov means zodiacal good fortune. So I thought, interesting. And in the summer here in Britain, you will have 3 stars. Vega, which is the star for Ma'at, cosmic harmony. The harp of Orpheus is also that in Greek. Deneb in Cygnus, and Mr. Andrew Collins has written a whole book about Cygnus, believing that in about 17,000 years ago, there were shamans going into caves in the British Isles, tuning into Cygnus star system, and he even believes that part of 2012 may be signals from Cygnus. and Altair in Aquila, which is a very nearby star, which you're going to see in a second. This man is a retired astronomer, and these are difficult to read in here, but Guy Otwell's Astronomical Companion shows the set of 7 stars that are with our sun. Our sun's one of 7. There's Altair, there's Vega, Alpha Centauri's the closest, Sirius, and this is a suite of stars where it's very likely that ascended masters hang out, meaning leaving the Earth but still staying as on a neighboring star, broadcasting and connecting. And I think the Mayans know something about this as well. And here's one, you see Sirius here. Arcturus is close, only 26 to 30 light years. Edgar Cayce, I think probably David Wilcock, believe Hurtak. Everybody sees Arcturus as the gateway in and out of our particular sector of space. In Britain, it's likely that the astronomy was way about the circumpolar stars. There are many people believing now, Barbara Hand-Clow's written a good book about it, that it's only 14,000 years ago that we've had the 23.5 degree angle that creates the 26,000 year cycle. So, and according to one channel, the Watchers, a certain group of angels that watch over us, live only 4 or 5 light years away. Like that's their home place. Now we're in a set of 8, which I'm going to go through pretty quickly, which were from the past 2 or 3 years. In Martinsell Hill, it was the first circle where it couldn't complete, right? There was a boundary, so I called it boundary issues, just to be a little cute. And I did an interesting meditation on it, and I realized, no, this is about a new way of looking at physics. You know, it used to be it was just particles and waves in physics. And now they're seeing loops and lots of things. It's a whole new model. So this particular starfish, one, it's regenerating. It's growing an extra arm. Most starfish have 5, right? So, and you can look at this, and in time you'll understand how many circles would be there if it went over. So it's about crossing the dimensional border. You have to do that with your visionary imagination. The oracle took me about 3 days to write because I'm a perfectionist with sonics. I don't know if perfectionist is the right word, but this is a spin on Coleman Barks's recreations from Rumi. There's a field light years beyond human ideas of good and evil, moral duality. Chaos and cosmos, that's Greek cosmology. Male and female, logos and eros, yin and yang, hadrons and leptons, insects and fixed stars. Insects and fixed stars is the 17th Mayan calendar. There's way more than one Mayan calendar. They have many calendars, probably 22. But if you think about it, an insect is like the smallest thing, and a fixed star is the largest thing. So they call it the calendar of insects and fixed stars. Sorry, I'll go back. We will meet you there, and that's Coleman, meaning that the beings who are in higher dimensions look at us kind of trapped in our duality matrix. But once we get through those dualities, then we can have a different level of vibrational attunement. How many people have read David's new book, Source Field Investigations? Just one? Really? In this whole room? Well, it's how many people go to David's site, Divine Cosmos? Half a dozen. David's doing an interesting work. You know, if you want to get the positive side of all the conspiracy stuff and the banking, some of which you're going to hear pretty soon at this conference, he's extraordinarily understanding about how we are going through a phase breakdown. You saw that with the Pluto in Capricorn that Jason was talking about. Many of our cultural institutions and what we see as present history are going to dissolve pretty quickly. Yes, do it.
I have a question. In this particular pictogram, it stops where grass starts. Now, as far as I understand it, it doesn't have to be wheat, it doesn't have to be anything in particular. It will go on snow even, show. So why does it stop where the grass starts?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer of it, but I think the circle makers wanted us to visualize the rest of the field. And I assumed, up until you asked that question, that it couldn't be imprinted in the way that it was imprinted in the field on grass. But maybe it wouldn't have looked good. I don't know. It's a good question. Pardon? Speak up a little bit.
There was a physical boundary, there was a sense of it.
Yes, a sense of a physical boundary. That's good. Okay, I've got limited time now. These are a multi-dimensional, beautiful circle with 9 meditators. There's actually 8, it's a cube, and there's 8 little cubes taken out, which is why I put it at 80. 80 in Hebrew is the Hebrew letter Phe. It has to do with spiraling energy and transformation, even transmutation. And then this was the last circle last year, and Karen Alexander pointed out that it's actually a 5th-dimensional geometric form. If you gaze at this enough, you're going to see cubes in here. It's a mathematical version of 5D. First time, and we'd been seeing the 4th-dimensional ones creep up in the couple years before, but this just opens it up really wide. I'm very hopeful that we're going to have another 5D this year, but because of all the rain, it's very hard. And I've heard that Eastfield's kind of closed down. So the meditation for this is from Jubilee Plantation, is with 10 deep breaths, descend and reascend your 5 distinct energy bodies, beginning at your soul star, above your crown chakra, and then open up your own 5th-dimensional viewing station. I recommend, as a meditation, that you do that. Not right now, but before you go to bed, and then you meditate on your soul star, 12, 14 inches above your crown, then with one breath, then the pineal gland, then the heart, then the hara, then the root chakra, and come back up. It's a very simple meditation. It can be very powerful. Okay? And it even can be done in breath and blowing the breath out at each. Okay? Next. This one I had the good fortune to be in the Poosie Vale at Churton Bottom for about, I don't know, hour and a half, 2 hours. It was extraordinarily joyful. Why 81? Because there's 3 sets of 27 circles, and then there's this open clasp. One could say that our consciousness is like an open clasp in our electromagnetic field. Every now and again we close the clasp, we open the clasp, just like breathing. Okay? Know that wherever you are in the great dance of life energy, your partner is nearby, but a heartbeat away, dancing that sacred spiral with you. So the joy of this circle is very high, so I called it Earth Rebirth Dance. And it appears, and this is the work of Walter Crittenden, and I'm heading off to a conference for him who wrote a wonderful book called Lost Star of Myth and Time. We have a companion star in our big galactic orbit. I think it's Sirius B because Sirius B weighs so much. I think Sirius B is like a galactic energy that everything nearby spins around. That's just my personal theory. I have to talk to Walter about that one. Okay, that's a lot of time. We're at 82. This was the Or Golden section. Of all the crop circle meditations I've ever been, that was the most challenging. I was in it alone I was with a friend Susie. It was about 10 hours after it came down. I don't think anybody else had been in it. And it was very sober. It got written up on Crop Circle Connected and connected to the heart because there's a heart-shaped copse of hawthorn trees, which is a remedy for the heart. And there's a Mayan calendar thing in here, 13 times 20, 260, the 260 days in the Mayan calendar. But so I thought, well, is it a galactic heart initiation? As I was meditating and all, a French group came down from a hill where they'd been taping, saying that they had like shots of a UFO that hovered over the field. It was really potent. I was stunned. I just got a download. I couldn't do much thinking about it. I'm still waiting for further guidance on it. But it was powerful. Really powerful circle. This one, although people thought it was a Mayan design, most Mayan pyramids do have more than 5. So, but it is a set of 20 here, and the beautiful lay in here, again, a 20-fold pattern. What this is something that my friend Martine Prechtel says, and it's a prayer in Mayan. Long life, honey in the heart, no evil, 13 thank yous. And 13, by the way, is the number of the heart in Hebrew. So it doesn't matter whether you're pagan or Hebrew, Christianity did 13 a bad deal. It's the hidden one in the core of 12. 13's a beautiful number. Number 83, this is a picture behind the number of 2 small little circles. Last year, I spent about 2 hours walking this circle, this tiny little circle right there, the smallest of the whole macrocosmic, opened up a window to the microcosmic, and there were 2 little circles with 5 spinners in it. I was in stitches. I figured, well, if extraterrestrials have kids, they let the kids do that one. You know? It was beautiful. Really, really beautiful. So Windmill Hill, the one that we went out to yesterday, was not at all at the vibrational level of these previous 2 years. Not at all. It was interesting, but I thought the one yesterday that came down 2 days ago was actually a recapitulation of a ceremony that used to happen at Avebury. Can't go into that right now. The oracle. When you feel engulfed by whirlwinds, earth changes, and unfamiliar frequencies, which is going to happen to all of us pretty soon, your gratitude for minute expressions of beauty will restore inner harmony and balance. When the macrocosmic big picture overwhelms you, Tom Kenyon suggests this, most spiritual teachers, focus on a small, beautiful, joyful experience in your life. And Tom is very keen. He says the Hathors insist that as we go through this, these speed bumps, these portal zones, it's like, the airplane shaking. We have to be grateful for, a piece of chocolate, a hug from a friend, the light coming from the eyes of a being that we're meeting for the first time. And it's by those heart resonances that we're going to stay stable and positive amidst the speed bumps of a dimensional shift. Okay? These 2 could probably take a whole hour. I had the good fortune to walk this whole one. There's the number 145 144 is nested in it, the microcosmic circles. Had this one alone with a buddy of mine for a couple of hours, and although there's people in this photograph, I'm going to try and make a device, a healing device, where there's 6 full octahedrons, very, very powerful, both connected to Metatron. The weave was about the most beautiful I've ever seen, and the core around it. This is what you call an authentic crop circle. Honestly, it's just out of this world. So the Merkava in Hebrew has a gematria of 267, which happens to be the exact degree of the galactic center right now. 27 degrees of Sagittarius. So this was a stellated Merkava. Once your Merkava consciousness chariot attains light speed, there's nowhere to go and nothing to do. Just relax. Meher Baba, don't worry. Be happy. You are at home in the honeycombed heart of the cosmos. Astronomers now believe that there is a hexagonal star web that extends quite far out. My webmaster did that. That little. How many people have seen this crop circle? This might be new to most. 2 people, 3 people in the room. This came down on 2 sides of a highway. Nobody took notice of it. I think Jay Goldner overlaid them and came up with what looks really quite like the Shroud of Turin. We could take a whole hour on this crop circle alone because there's a mathematical coding, which I've started to decode here with the Hebrew gematria. And if you were a card-carrying medieval Roman Catholic Christian, you'd probably want to go and touch it, and you'd think it would be the face of Christ. However, this book, The Second Messiah by Knight and Lomas, points out that the Templars knew where the treasures were underneath the Herod's temple. They funded the Crusades to get those treasures. And this is likely a photograph of a man named Jacques de Molay, who was the last Grand Master when the Templars were wiped out by the church. The Templars were the bankers, by the way, in that period of time, and carried something of the Essene tradition through a number of centuries. That's interesting, and these people, in whose image authors, I didn't mention their names, say that it was likely done by Leonardo da Vinci. I kind of like that idea. He developed camera obscura. He was a genius, and he didn't like Christian doctrine much at that time. And some people say that the Mona Lisa was actually the face of Leonardo. He had some humor. May even be that he took his own photograph and put it there. So this one is highly controversial. If this gets broadcast on the web, I'll probably get some email from fundamentalist Christians saying, oh, come on, knock it off. But I believe that the crop circles are here to really expand our consciousness, push the envelope, and get us to see a bigger picture. Okay? And then they total 248, which in Hebrew is rechem, merechem, the womb, and it speaks about agony and ecstasy, which, if you got crucified, you'd experience some agony and ecstasy. And the womb also means the breath of the Elohim, Ruach Elohim. This is how coded the Hebrew mathematics and language is. The oracle. Your eye sees more than your heart knows. That's William Blake. Close your eyes and feel what is hidden within the deep heart's core. That's a phrase from William Butler Yeats. Now open your eyes to what is ancient and new before you. And that's a real suggestion for our time. Okay.
That's it, I'm afraid.
Oh, come on. The chalice.
You've got 1 minute.
Okay, that's good. The chalice is the energy of the soul star coming down to the heart. And it's an Egyptian sun disk, what is called the Antakarana Bridge. Probably the simplest and most beautiful of the crop circles. The oracle goes from Blake, as we open the doors of perception, we experience everything as it truly is, infinite. Open the chalice of your heart to hear the music of the spheres, harmonics of the heavenly lyre. Open your portals of perception this very moment. I might have to add more, but I kind of like the deck closing in 86. It's the number of the Elohim, the co-creators. Thank you so much.
Okay. Joseph Mark Cohen. Lovely stuff. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.